When I got out of prison for the third time back in 2019, I wasn't sure if I'd be able to stay clean or not. I was being released onto the streets of Portland, Oregon, after spending a year in prison for a burglary I'd committed to feed my heroin habit.
Come here, sit down. Good boy. Sit down. Sit down. Good.
I was being released onto the streets of a city where I'd spent 3 chaotic years being homeless. Rewind to an early morning back in 2015. It was pouring down rain in typical Portland fashion, and I was feeling particularly desperate because I hadn't gotten high at all that day. I usually didn't break into houses because I was raised better than that. I knew it was wrong, but in that particular moment, I was a shell of my normal self. I walked up to the front door of a house without a car in its driveway and rang the doorbell, not knowing what I'd say if someone answered. When no one answered the door, I made my way around the back of the house. I found a window, smashed the glass, and made my way in. I found a closet with men's clothes and immediately changed out of my wet clothing. I found a backpack, and then I made a beeline for the medicine cabinet in the bathroom, where I found a few bottles of mild painkillers, just enough to stave off the dope sickness. I quickly tore through the house, searching for anything of value that I could carry. All told, I was only in the house for about 5 or 10 minutes. Little did I know then that I'd left one of my old wet socks behind that had my DNA on it, which would come back to haunt me later. After going to court, I ended up serving 1 year in the Oregon State Correctional Facility. When I was released, I had to live in Oregon until I completed parole successfully. I'd never lived in Portland as a sober person before and was unsure if I'd be able to resist the temptations. Then COVID hit in 2020 and everything went downhill. Homelessness and overdose deaths skyrocketed and tent camps sprung up everywhere. The same city that was used to being praised for its progressive values was now being lambasted by the national media as an example of a city that had lost its way. But that story paints an incomplete picture. My story and Portland's story have become intertwined, both of us learning that rock bottom isn't always the end of the story. Sometimes it's just the beginning.
The governor of Oregon has declared an emergency for the city of Portland just a few years after it became the first state in the nation to largely decriminalize drug use.
Overdose deaths from synthetic opioids have increased by 533%.
Fentanyl overdoses are higher than ever.
Trump says he wants to work with states to ban urban camping wherever possible.
Our once great cities have become unlivable, unsanitary nightmares. The homeless, the drug addicted, and the violent and dangerously deranged.
My mother used to say, a long time ago, whenever there would be a catastrophe that was in the movies or on the air, she would say, always look for the helpers. There will always be helpers.
I'm not sure how I survived when so many of my friends in similar shoes didn't, but I did, and I'm here to tell you my story. But this story isn't just about me. It's about the volunteers and people working tirelessly on the front lines to help the less fortunate neighbors in their communities. Average, everyday people from Portland who chose to face this crisis head on. It was surreal when I got the call about appearing on the show because I wasn't expecting it, and I really do listen to it like every week. Not every day, but I listen to it a lot.
Decided yesterday was whether the city has the right to enforce its public camping bans using tickets and fines when there's nowhere else for homeless people to sleep. Lawyers for the city's homeless residents argued that's cruel and unusual punishment, which is prohibited.
My goal is to promote our work with the Shower Project and show that it's possible for an addict to not only quit hard drugs, but to recover and give back to their community as well. The Shower Project first began as an idea back in 2023 when I was a senior at Portland State University. I'd returned to college after dropping out back in the 1990s, and I needed to choose a project for my senior capstone. I'd already been volunteering for several years through First Unitarian Church, helping to hand out supplies to people experiencing homelessness downtown. Then I was introduced to Dana Buell, the social justice director at church, who suggested that we team up to found a project offering free showers and a safe space for the less fortunate people in our community.
We're getting ready to start our day and set up the Shower Project. So follow me.
We managed to secure several significant grants, and the church provided the space and the volunteers. We opened our doors in the winter of 2024, and the rest, as they say, is history. It's very gratifying for me, because not long ago, I was completely lost and unable to help myself. So it's one of the reasons that I'm doing this, because I know how it feels. I've always felt sort of like the black sheep. I'd always had problems with drugs, and I grappled with whatever I had. Drug use started at a pretty early age. When I look back on it now and I see pictures of how young I was, it's pretty crazy. But yeah, it started in the 7th or 8th grade and just continued on from there.
Kelly is an expert in living and dying. The core inside of him he managed to come out of it. Now, true, he did overdose and was resuscitated. And the fact that somehow his brain and his body still function, I think that's a message that you better do something with it.
Here's the shower area. We just have one. So we're a small outfit, but we're growing. All right, I'm gonna grab a couple t-shirts. It's pretty nasty when you're out there, walking around on the streets, Yeah, it's huge. It's refreshing to get a shower. It's a small, simple thing, but it goes a long way. At least it did for me when I was out there. As of 2024, over 11,000 people in Multnomah County were experiencing homelessness, with nearly half living outside or in vehicles. This crisis has worsened due to a lack of affordable housing, a surge in fentanyl and meth addiction, and Oregon now needs an additional 3,700 more treatment beds to effectively support those struggling with addiction.
Every 2 weeks or so, there seem to be sweeps. We know that there aren't enough shelter beds for everybody. There's not enough affordable housing for everybody. Like, literally, it's a cat and mouse game. We started the shower project in part because just outside my window, you can see that there are a lot of people who come and camp right in our neighborhood with no good hygiene available to them. The shower project is an opportunity for us to actually share the resources that we have. One more place for people to get a place to rest, a place to get clean, interactions with people where they're not being criminalized. They are just trying to find a place where they can be and be undisturbed, a place to rest, a place where they know that they can come back to, that their few things that they own are still going to be there.
Our project is beautiful, and water is magic. One of the most magical things on the face of the earth, the basic things. Wash your body, get the hair going, get a pair of socks, all the basic stuff like that people forget about. It brings a person back that's been on the streets. It brings them back.
It's just incredible that we're able to have Kelly's lived experience and sensibilities help to shape how we're doing the shower project. We couldn't have done it without his energy, and very grateful for Kelly.
When COVID swept through Portland in 2020, housing costs exploded, pushing average Americans onto its streets and into tent camps. I watched as the nation's perspective of Portland transformed from a weird utopia into the cautionary tales that made national headlines. But what those headlines missed is that redemption and destruction often share the same address. The city that's been blamed for losing its way is the same one that showed me how to find mine.
Overdose deaths continue to rise here in Oregon, while the national trend is actually on the decline.
The CDC data shows Oregon, Washington, and Alaska lead in the surge of overdose deaths in the country.
Last year, the city of Portland officially stopped distributing tents except in severe weather. Rob Los Ricos, who's been living on the streets of Portland for about 5 years, says Gonzalez's policy will just further stigmatize the homeless community.
And, I just don't understand the cruelty and the sadistic nature of his policies.
We've got to stop the enablement culture. It's costing us a bunch of money. We're spending close to $14 million a year cleaning up sidewalks. Anecdotally, that some of these tents and tarps are used for criminal behaviors, for drug trafficking, for sex trafficking, for the distribution of guns.
One of my biggest pet peeves, actually, is that people tend to assume all homeless people are the same. And you'll hear people say terms like the homeless, right? Drives me nuts. I hate it, right? Because we're talking about individual human beings. Homelessness is a symptom of the problem. It is not the problem. When I see encampments on the street, I get mad too. When I see trash everywhere, like, nobody wants that. It hurts my heart to know that people are living like that. What we know about addiction is that if people have strong connections, if people have meaningful things that are happening in their lives, the chances of them becoming dependent on drugs is very low.
I had all the love and support in the world from my family growing up, but I struggled with my parents' divorce and my mother's eventual remarriage. I fell in with a group of neighborhood kids who introduced me to hard drugs, and I started using them to self-medicate. Soon after, my grades started dropping, and eventually I got pulled out of school and put into rehab for the first time. As of today, I think I've been to literally 25 different rehabs over the course of my life, which is crazy to say, but it's true. And it all started back when I was in my teen years. I moved out of my parents' house at 17, around the same time that the crack epidemic was in full swing. I spent a lot of time in downtown Baltimore copping drugs in the same dangerous neighborhoods depicted in HBO's The Wire. Heroin didn't come until much later. I didn't start heroin until I was almost 30. So I really fell in love with that warm opiate feeling. It's like people compare it to taking a warm bath. And yeah, that's a feeling that I ended up chasing for the rest of my life.
From the Gert Boyle studio at OPB, this is Think Out Loud. I'm Dave Miller. If you're just tuning in, we're talking right now about 2 volunteer-run efforts in Portland to provide showers for people experiencing homelessness. I'm talking with Kelly Clendenin, the shower coordinator for the First Unitarian's 13 Salmon Shower Project. Kelly, you mentioned that you spent some number of years homeless yourself. How long was that? How long were you on the street?
It's a long story, but basically, it was about 3 years. I've also had glimpses of success in the past. I went to college in my early 20s, but I dropped out in my sophomore year to move to Los Angeles, where I worked in television and film production for the first time. I've also dabbled with acting and worked as a freelance videographer in Washington, D.C., but I relapsed again and ended up manipulating the doctor who prescribed my Suboxone. He wrote scripts for a litany of drugs, including Xanax. I began going into frequent blackouts, and one day I bought an Amtrak ticket, loaded up on drugs, and headed to Seattle. But my ultimate objective was always to wind up in Portland. Most people, when thinking about the differences between cities in America, think of cuisine, culture, architecture, sports teams, etc. Whereas the addict thinks in terms of the drug market and the street scene. What type of heroin does it have? China white, scrambled, raw, or black tar? Everything has fentanyl in it today, and it's changed the rules of the game.
Fentanyl has been considerably more potent and shorter acting than heroin is. With heroin, people might have been using 3-4 times a day. With fentanyl, I'm talking to people using 20-25 times a day.
I've overdosed 3 times. I used heroin off and on for 15 years and never overdosed once. And then when fentanyl hit the streets, I overdosed 3 times in a matter of 6 months. I overdosed on Greyhound. My lungs collapsed, and I woke up in the hospital, and they hit me with Narcan.
I got a call from a physician in Redding, California. And he said, "Are you the mother of Kelly Clendenin?" Yes. "He's in intensive care, and we think it's important you come out as soon as you can." And that's the phone call. That's when your heart beats real fast. Did not know if he was going to survive. And they said, "He's a difficult patient. We can't take care of him. because he's so high and dying. Could you please come out? And so I did. I got on a plane the next morning.
What does it mean to you now to be offering showers to people who are currently homeless?
Tremendously gratifying. It's been about 3 months now, and so far we've been meeting our quotas and exceeding that every week. And give out Narcan too, I should mention that, because we are in the midst of still the fentanyl crisis. Narcan. As you can see, this is 8 milligram Clexato. This is the brand name of Narcan. It's a spray kind. And this is the extra strength kind. The most stuff is usually 4 milligrams. And the fire department, fire and rescue, have had to hit people several times with the 4 milligrams. So I try to make sure I get that 8. It's more expensive, but it's twice as effective.
Harm reduction is a set of principles, philosophies, tactics, tools, specifically acknowledging that people are going to do drugs. It's evidence-based practice for reducing overdose, HIV, hepatitis. Even if you are doing drugs, you deserve dignity, respect, autonomy, health.
Let's check over here real quick. I can take all that stuff and put it right here. Oh no, we won't get in trouble. I'll take the fall. Portland and I have traveled a long road together. We've both been wounded, both been written off. Today, I see a city that, like me, is slowly fighting its way back. In the midst of all the political division in our country today, where the unhoused have become like talking points instead of human beings, programs like the Shower Project are more important than ever. I'm a huge proponent of something called medication-assisted treatment, otherwise known as MAT. It's definitely one of the things that's helped save my life. What I've learned is that healing happens at the community level, far from the headlines and political debates. It's the volunteers who show up every week to help serve meals, and the churches that open its doors for shelter, and the local journalists who amplify the voices that would otherwise go unheard. These are the connective tissues that are holding Portland together during its darkest hours.
I think that Portland is in a really beautiful place right now where there is more attention and more care and more commitment to solving the homelessness crisis, to solving our addiction crisis than I have seen in the nearly 20 years I've been doing this work. And that gives me a lot of hope. I think it's unfortunate that people don't realize how long it takes to do some of these things.
We urgently need those 3,700 additional treatment beds, but we also need compassionate neighbors who understand that addiction isn't a moral failing. It's a disease that requires proper treatment and support.
Sometimes addiction ruins families, and sometimes families come together to create survivors. The more I believe that a family is involved in the pain and the darkness, the closer everybody comes to the light.
The more people can feel that they're held, that people care about them, the more likely they are to be able to succeed in dealing with an addiction issue. The problems that we're seeing are being blamed on unhoused folks. Mental health and drug addiction issues exist for housed people too.
The people of Portland gave me a second chance when I needed it the most. My commitment now is to extend that same chance to others, because redemption isn't always found in grand political gestures, but in the quiet persistence of showing up day after day, believing that what's broken can be mended, perhaps not to its original form, but into something better. As of 2026, the Shower Project has helped over 2,200 different people from the Portland community. A special thanks to all the volunteers, without whom none of this would be possible.
Heading upstream on a one-way street. Still working hard, no shoes on my feet. My ears are bleeding from all the horns honking. Everyone's speeding, but I'm still walking. This is the life, I'll take it, that's my dream. I'll make it, when life gets tough, I just keep saying over and over again. Just keep walking, just keep walking.